Computer. All right, Mr. Ready, KP, ready?
Let's do it.
Ready, Dan?
Yeah, buddy.
You're used to this. We're amateurs, so you're stone cold. I get it.
I know.
All right. Well, welcome to another Launch It podcast. As always, you got Matt.
We got myself, Karen Deep,
And you got to choose Dan now.
and the world-renowned
Dan Deigan. Dan, you just had a stellar Friday. Tell us about Friday and what you did and how cool that was.
You know, in the end, a lot of I realized very quickly on the weekend after the Friday, you know, you work, I don't know if you guys have ever been there where you work so hard and you have so much passion for something. You know, we never in our industry have had a day dedicated to the sales rep. We've had industry days, you know, some major freight companies have put on industry days. We've had seminars and keynote speakers, but we've never had a day dedicated to the sales rep, dedicated to the strategies, the techniques, the framework, the mindset to get salespeople into the 2 Comma Club. And so we did. High Performance Logistics Sales put on the High Performance Logistics Sales Summit, and an entire day from 8:30 in the morning till 4:30 at night was dedicated to the sales rep, to really helping them build a different understanding, build different strategies, get the tools, the frameworks, the mindset to take 2021, you know, grab the bull by the horns and get moving. And we called it LFG, which is let's effing go, was kind of the tagline for it. That actually it was one of my students that came up with it, and you know, we rocked it. Technically on the back end, we were just talking about it, on the back end, it was insane. I mean, to the point where at lunchtime, I got my hands in my head and I'm just like, this is such a bomb. It in my opinion, on that Friday, didn't do anything that I wanted it to do. You know, I taught the secrets of the top 2%. The audio was there, the video wasn't there. So it's not usually, when you're doing these types of teachings, the visual's pretty important. Yeah, you know, about half hour after it ended, everything kind of morphed a bit. I started to get texts from people and DMs from people saying, oh my God, you know what? There was a few echoes, like my voice, but holy crap, was it an awesome seminar and an awesome day. And then when I was doing the edits, it was close to 30 hours of post, which is when you got all the videos and you're kind of cutting out the hums, the ahs, the clips, the echoing, oh, hold on, let me bring you up on camera. You know, and you really get it streamlined. So where it's Q&A message, like really streamline it. I'm telling you guys, it is killer. I mean, awesome. There's so much stuff there that I could take anyone from wherever they are and catapult them in their sales career. So it's fun. The digital part of it is fun. We're going to keep doing it because, you know, it was really cool to be able to broadcast to people all over North America, as opposed to, like, I don't know if you guys know the story behind the High Performance Logistics Sales Summit. We were originally supposed to have this in March, and 2 weeks before we were going live, we'd sold close to 200 tickets. We still had 2 weeks left. We were crushing it on the marketing. Everything got shut down. So it was, you know, so if you could imagine this for 1 second, and I know we got other things we want to talk about, but, you know, you build up an event for 5 months, it gets completely squashed because of something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And you build it up again for another 3 months, and then you turn on a camera and it's black. and you're kind of like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and the whole day while people were delivering this awesome value, I'm running around, and if I wish I would have just turned on a camera and kind of left it in the corner and come back to it after, because I mean, we're moving production tables, we're moving tripods, we're setting, you know, different things up. We're okay, let's try this and see if it works, and let's try this and see if it works, and unplug this, and it was just a gong show. It was unreal on the back end, but on the front end, it was huge value.
Well, I know I watched a bit of it. I know KP. I didn't send him the link, so I'm a bad person. I should have sent him the link. I know I watched a fair bit. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing. I came in at a certain moment, and I thought it was fantastic. In all honesty, I thought the messages were great. I was surprised, to be honest. I didn't do a lot of research beforehand, but on the day of, I put it on. I was talking to Dan Thompson. He goes, "Hey Matt, are you checked in for Dan's thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm checking in. We're all good. Pre-ticket sales. We're all like, we're getting ready." And then I see that like the people who are coming on. The first guy was I think an ex-NFL guy.
Yeah, Marcus Ogden, awesome.
Right. So he starts talking. I'm like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. This is pretty neat." And then I'm like going, maybe I underestimated this whole thing here. And I start sitting down, and I got phone calls. I'm thinking, doing my day-to-day work. I'm like, this is really important. I gotta be listening to this. I'm like, I want to pay attention. I didn't give it enough. In my honest opinion, I didn't give it enough as much attention as I should have, because as soon as I started those messages coming across, I sent it to my boss. I was like, "You should check this out." They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "This is awesome content here for sales." Like, really? So I think they logged in, they looked at it for a little bit, like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And I'm like, "Man, this is a great message." And the whole setup, you go to a Tony Robbins thing, there's glitches there, so everybody, even the best productions have issues. So I don't think you should fault yourself at that. The fact that in the end the message was delivered, I think it was that was the most important thing, right?
Yeah, and it always is. I mean, for everything. I mean, let's transition that back to sales, right? The message, the deliverable is achieving your customers' goals, and how gong showish is it sometimes on the back end? What we go through and what our asset partners go through on the back end, but on the front end, the product delivers and it meets the targets that the customer needs. So on the back end, it's this extreme chaos. And on the front end, it's like, birds floating in this nice calm lake. And on the back end, it's these, tidal waves coming of stuff. And
I think tidal waves is the correct justice for that.
Like sharks swimming about to bite down on the dock or whatever.
Yeah. And you're in the middle of a tsunami and your customer's on a hammock, just, sipping a margarita or something, going, "Oh man, this is awesome. The boys are taking care of everything. The guys are taking care of everything. My guys got it. My girls got it." And, wonderful world of sales, right? So it's, in everything we do, there's that, spectrum difference, I guess, if you want, right?
So I know KP probably has tons of questions because he loves to learn about sales. He reads a lot of stuff about sales. So KP, I know I always say this in every single podcast. I won't talk as much this time.
You never lets me talk, Dan. What do I do?
I'll let you talk a little and ask some questions and get some better value. I promise.
For sure. I know, Dan, I guess you touched on the summit you had on Friday. Kind of, no matter where you are in your stage of your sales career, it was value is to provide. You could get value from it no matter what, right? So I guess just touching on that, I guess given my experience, I know I kind of briefly mentioned before, I kind of been dabbling with sales, kind of doing ops, like operations wise. I have a pretty good ground of what I'm doing logistically. How would someone in my position best position themselves for 2021 to make sure, if they're just, let's just say doing like $5,000 to $10,000 in margin, how do I, 2-3 times that in 2021?
10 times in Grant Cardone.
Or 10x as Grant Cardone says.
Yeah. So, the key moving forward and the really big thing that took my career from the 3 times that I tested and tested and tested from 0 to 1.23 million in GP in 13 months, from 0 to 1.46, and then from 0 to 1.65, just about. The key was qualifying. Really do yourself a favor, get a client profile. And when I say a client profile, like one of the things I really, really wish I had when I first started in this industry was somebody who talked long-term, right? Because let's look at this for a minute. This is your career. This isn't a job. This isn't a stepping stone. You're not using this business as, I'm doing night school, and then when I finish night school, I'm going to become a lawyer, right? Lawyers are all in. Lawyers, whether you're a prosecutor or a defender, you have a client profile. Somebody who did the crime or somebody needs protecting from the crime. You choose which end you're going to be in. So in sales, we tend not to do that. we call somebody up and they say, yeah, I ship, 4 skids a week. You're like, perfect. You're the right customer. I want you to ship 4 skids a week with me. But if he's nickeling and diming you, he or she's nickeling and diming you, taking up 80% of your time for 4 skids when it's on an LTL truck, and you got to tell me when it reaches the border, tell me when it clears the border, tell me when it's an hour out, tell me when it's this, tell me what's that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the truck's got to sit for an hour and 45 minutes to drop 3 skids off. Like we don't take into context all that back end.
Mm-hmm.
That customer, although you're, quote unquote, making profit, they don't pay for 90 days. So now your company's got to hold the receivable. If your company is, doing a 50, 60, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70 invoice cost, what it actually costs to get the invoice out the door with rent, with hydro, with all the utilities, with the salaries and all that, then there's really no money made. And my question then becomes, do you really want to work with that person and count on putting food on your table, paying your mortgage, raising your family with that person as a customer? So qualifying, figure out your avatar, figure out your ideal client. You look at any major successful company and you go to the people and you say, who's your avatar? And they will tell you exactly who it is to a T. Most companies actually have pictures of people that become their avatar. That's your first thing. You find out your client avatar. And your second
Who's your avatar?
My avatar is the number one thing. I will never deal with any clients that don't know that what I do is a resource to their business. That is my number one thing for my avatar. My second thing for my avatar is a customer that trusts me to look at the full supply chain. I don't just want to deal with one piece. Will I come in with one piece and show my dominance in that? But I want to be that consultative area. And I'll give you a prime example. Just before I left my corporate career, I had one customer that was in a real bad spot, and we were doing quite a bit of business. And I went in and the CEO said, no, you can't come in and tell us how to ship our freight. I mean, this is how we've been doing it forever. And my guy, because he was my ideal client profile, he went to bat for me, and I was able to actually there was close to 200,000 in savings that I was able to give them. Didn't touch any of my profit. But what we did is we were doing stock transfers from east to west. And I created a whole SOP. I went to CN. I got their safety and compliance department to approve it and sign off on it. I went to their offices. I built 10 containers worth of the framing and structure for it. I trained their people in Ontario. I went out west. I trained their people out there for it. We tripled our business. They saved $200,000. So I actually made more money because he fought for me knowing that I was a resource. That is my number one. Once we get past resource, see, when you're a resource, a real resource, I'm not just, superficial resource. I'm talking a real resource, somebody that understands, if I have my supply chain screw up, that boulder you just threw in the pond where you're lying on your hammock, sipping that margarita, that becomes a tidal wave. So you, Dan, as my logistics incumbent, you're here to reduce my market exposure. You're here to help me achieve my goals. And that's really the essence, what I see the essence of a resource. So I ask questions when I first call somebody up, like, what's your primary and secondary reason for adding or switching a service provider? That was like my number one question for probably close to a decade.
I was gonna say, you said that with such ease, like you don't even think about it. It's like, duh, 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 duh.
That's practice, right? So
Yeah.
this was one thing that we, I was on a Q&A with my 28-day high performance sales challenge students today. And somebody said, like in the next, till the new year, what would you be doing right now if you were in sales till the new year? I'd be practicing my pitch. I'd be practicing my script. And some people say, oh, scripts are crap. They're not. Scripts are the greatest thing you can ever create in your sales career, because when you have a script, you start to collect data. And, as Dean Crook, love Dean Crook, he's from DAT, he's principal analyst at DAT. Data is the new oil. Mm-hmm. And think of it like this in a sales context, okay? So I asked the same question to 50 people. I'm going to very quickly, and we're talking, 50 people, 4 days, 5 days, a week, like just a work week, 5 days. I can get all the data back on what are they saying? So week 2, when I asked that question, I already predict the answers. It's very easy. I create a simple 3-part grid. The first part is the question, the answer, my response. And I study my responses. Can I get better? Can I tweak it? Can I improve it? Can I, morph it into something else? How can I take that response and create a leeway into the next part of my conversation? See, sales careers are work. A sales job is to do just enough so you don't get fired. Does that make sense?
It does, and it kind of brings up a question for me. And I know I promised I wouldn't talk.
It's all good. I understand.
I don't know. I have to ask a question. So how do you transition from what I described, and I stole this term from our buddy Dan Thompson, a freight jockey, to a qualified sales? Because I don't think anybody, I think a lot of new salespeople get stuck in that freight jockey mentality. It's, I come join a company, I join XYZ company, and the boss is in here, he goes, I want sales. The first thing, you're going to look for the most transactional, and those transactional, you and I know, KP knows, everybody knows, transactional sales suck, because that customer is, no offense to any customers, it's a bottom feeder customer. Their product is dependent on the lowest margin possible. Mm-hmm. And carriers focus on it as a filler for their freight. So they'll drop it. A great example is paper companies. Paper companies will get dropped by bigger carriers as soon as they find something with better rate. And then when they need it again, they'll drop the rate to fill up the freight. So it's not really a value add, it's more of a filler. So how do you differentiate yourself from a freight jockey, or you have even better? If KP comes to me, goes, Matt, I want to do sales. I go, no problem. I need you to bring a sale within the first week. How do I go, I'm not a freight jockey, I bring in qualified sales, and this is my process? Like, how do you have that transition?
So that's a lot to unpack there. So first things first. So KP, did that answer your question about where you should start? Just before we go any further, because I want to make sure I did get that answered for you, because I know
he's good.
Not there for a simple question.
Yeah, no, I definitely got value from what you said, and it makes sense because I guess my prospecting strategy has kind of been everything and everything, kind of going back to, I guess, what we're going to talk about now about the jockey versus thing, because it's more so like, hey, you're new to the job, you just want to make money, so you're taking anything and anything you can get, right? But after a while, and I've realized this, you want to kind of hone in onto maybe a specific industry or a specific sector, so you really get the expertise in that one area, so you're knowledgeable for that. What you're saying, the qualified,
the passion for it.
Yeah, the qualified person you're looking for, right?
Yeah. So for the first part of the question, you can make that transition anytime you want. You really can. And when I say that, owners and kind of managers might not necessarily like it, but here's the thing. If you're going from a transactional to a long-term relationship, right? So instead of freight jockey, I'm going to call it transactional. So when I would get a hold of a transactional person, I understood this is transactional. So for example, what's your primary and secondary reason for adding or switching a service provider? Price. What do you mean by price? Well, Dan, what I do is I send an email out to 5 or 6 people, and whoever got the lowest rate gets the business. Okay, so as a new person, let's say you're getting this call. Okay, how do I get on the list? It's not your ideal customer, but you know the parameters. See, when we don't know the parameters in sales, we don't know why our customers buy. That's where everything gets skewed, and that's where all the friction's created. Your prospect takes the 3 lowest quotes. Whoever gets back to him the first with the lowest price wins. So now you have a timestamp and you have a rate stamp on it. But if you don't know that, because you don't ask the questions, and he just says, oh, I go out, and whoever's got the rate kind of wins. And he wants it back in 15 minutes and you're always getting it back in 25, 30 minutes, you're never going to get the business. But is there an opportunity to make a little bit of money, do some transactional business while you build your long-term business on the back end? Because again, remember, I used to say this is a marathon. And then somebody said, well, I look at it more as a 1,200 meter. And I'm like, you're right, because I want my customers to be here for the marathon. If I can train them to win in 1,200 meter, it's not that much different from an energy exertion. We just got to learn how to marshal our energy in specific ways to get the marathon. We already know we can train ourselves to run one of the most strenuous runs that anyone can do. So when I look at that, I say, okay, how can I identify which is going to be transactional? Now, once I identify it, I set rules for myself. And this is where, and you're both going to probably laugh because you've both probably been there. This is where so many salespeople get sucked into a vortex. They don't set up rules. So the person has, all of a sudden they start getting 15, 20 emails a day and they're sending out 15, 20 quotes. They're like, we're going to get something, and we don't get it. And then the next day it's another 15, 20. And your ops team is busy doing a couple of things. So you as a salesperson, you pick up the phone, you start going into load link, you start doing queries, start making 5, 6 phone calls. You know, those 5, 6 phone calls are 5 minutes a piece. So, you've burned 40 minutes there, 30 minutes there. You send the customer back, no, it didn't go, but I got this one. Okay, so now you're another half hour. You send the customer back, no, that didn't go, but I got this one. Never understanding the parameters, spending all of your time chasing this business that's transactional. So I set up rules. I say, okay, Mr. Prospect, I'll take you on that. I'll give you 3 rates, meaning I'll do it 3 times. Are you going to help me understand if I don't get awarded where I sit? No, Dan, you know what? I can't do that. Okay, so I'll do 3. I'll invest an hour and a half, because how do I know they're not working with somebody that's making 42% margins? How do I know that? We don't. We really don't. As much as we think the market's saturated with salespeople, there is so much freight out there that's very prosperous that these people get 1 or 2 calls a week. And we got to remember, 92% of the sales population are horrible at sales. And for all of you out there that are gasping at that, I'm sorry. But you are, the follow-up isn't there. The structure isn't there. The conversation is, they're not asking the right questions. They'll quote one or twice, and then they'll just stop quoting.
But that goes back to what you said earlier, right? Because I think there's no education on the sales. Like nobody, same as logistics. Nobody just goes to school. And I'm not in high school and I don't go, hey, I'm going to be a salesperson tomorrow. And they go like, perfect, we'll throw you in the sales college class, right? None of that is there. It's just like, you want to do sales?
Want to be a logistics technician.
Yeah.
And classes for that. And supply chain, they have classes for that. So people are actually starting to get into it. The sales class would be the real sales class, though, not, the way they're structured now. They can't be. Did that answer the question, guys? Because I guess if I unpacked everything you asked there.
Okay. I guess the question was answered. I guess now, how do, let's just say if someone's in a situation where, I guess going back to what Matt said, they're in a kind of a boat pit environment where their manager is like, hey, cool, we get you maybe working on these 1 or 2 long tail customers, but we need you to focus your energy on the transactional piece, but your heart is in it to do it for the long term type of thing. What you're talking about, is it kind of, do you trying to work it out that company, or do you jump ship and find maybe another company that will allow you for that, right? Where's that fine balance between, I guess, where you're at right now in the company and their culture versus you looking for something else?
That's a good question too.
Great question. So that's I'll answer it like this. Yes, if the messaging can never connect. Okay, so I always believe right message to the right person, deals get done.
Yeah.
Let's remember, our managers, our supervisors, our VPs, our owners, this is a deal, right? It's not my buddy, it's business, it's a deal. And if I'm delivering a message that my ideal client is somebody that treats me like a resource, and I know I'm not getting instantaneous business, but in the long run, it's going to work. And it's going to work in above the 2 comma club. It's going to work because I've proven it's going to work, and the people have proven it's going to work, and I'm following the strategies. And if that's your message and the owner's message or the manager's message is down here, you've got to find a way to bridge that gap, or it's never going to work. Mm-hmm. So maybe that bridge is, okay, can I work on a 60-40 split? So I'm going to work on, 60% of the transactional stuff that I bring in, I'm going to look at. The other 40% of the transactional stuff that I bring in, can I give to another sales rep? I want to limit my time, Mr. Manager. So what I've done is, and it comes down to that conversation that you have with them, that where they say, okay, I'm good with it. You know what, you want to do long-term, let's do that. So let's do, even if they say, okay, you know what, do me a favor, KP, 80-20 split. 80% just get business in the door, because it takes pressure off of me as your manager to defend you from the higher ups that want results, because business is about results. Now, we look at long-term development always produces more results than short-term transactional business. Always, always, always. But there's the long-term portion to it. Now, that long-term could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months. It depends on the customer, right? For long-term business, you need to establish a relationship. You need to establish image, credibility, and brand, and they need to really trust you, right? You don't have those 5 things, you're never going to get a ton of business and be able to do a 360-degree view of your customers, especially the trust. It's never going to happen. It's always going to be transactional, and that takes time. So understanding your parameters, understanding, okay, at what point does this customer's ROI not be there? Going to your manager and saying things like, can you tell me, what invoice cost is in this company? Because in this transactional business, I want to make sure, like, if you're telling me I got to take the business and I've got a guy that's, I'm making $50 a skid and he's giving me 12 skids a week, but our invoice cost is $60. I understand it's profit on paper, but it's not, right? And that conversation 99.9% of the time will change a manager's opinion of telling you just to bring in freight, right? Because on paper, sure, you're profitable. You're doing 5 of those a week. You're making $1,000 a month. They pay you 30%. 700 goes back to the company, but now they've lost because they already lost at the beginning number at $50, right? So when you really start to break down the cost structure of what it takes to run a company, the manpower, you're making $50 an order. And even if it's $30 an invoice cost and you're making $50 an order, but it's taken an hour to book a truck because of today's constrained environment and capacity crunch, is it really profitable? Really? Like, let's stop for a second and go back and say, you know what, Mr. Customer, it's taken an hour of my ops time. And then you pay me in 90 days or 60 days. And, I'm only making $50. So I ask you, does that sound like a profitable customer? Or on paper, the customer makes you money, but when you really look at the overall ROI, it's not there. It's not there. So having that conversation, being able to, sit down with your manager and say, okay, here's my ideal. And here's the thing. It's what I tell every single sales rep. You go in to do your projections with your managers, have your shit tight. Like, don't just go in and say, here are my projections. How are you going to get there? What are your mile markers? When you don't hit them, what are you going to do? What's the secondary plan? What's the second route? Like, it as a sales rep who has this as a career, again, I speak only in the career mentality, right? I'm a diehard logistics, transportation, sales guy to my core. I mean, I am a grade 9 dropout, and this industry has given me everything I've ever wanted in life. I owe this industry everything. So what I do when I do projections is the last time I did projections, I had literally like a 14-page manual, which was my outline. It was my framework of how I said I'm going to do these projections. And my manager came back to me and he goes, Dan, these are way too far out. Like, I can't submit these to corporate. I said, but it's what I'm going to do. And he said, no. Like, it's incredible. The second call into the year, I was 800% above target. Wow. But think of this for a second. I told everyone what I was going to do. Not only did I tell them, I had the roadmap. Like, the time for a map is before you go into the woods, not when you're lost. So I had the roadmap, and I followed my roadmap to the T, and I made those levels that I said I was going to make. And I remember 6 months in, another manager came to me and he goes like, listen, we need to do some adjustments on your projections. I said, oh, okay. And I gave him my first projections. You know what he said? Why weren't these submitted? Right? Like, so when it comes to that part of it, to that conversation, I've always said, have everything in order. Like when you're going in to talk to your manager about this, KP, like, you know, this is a sell.
Yeah.
So be prepared. This is not a cold call. This is the meeting to close the deal. So is your presentation tight? Is your messaging right? Is the call to action right? Can you hook them? Can you tell them a story? And can you make them an offer? It's key. Like every single interaction we have has to have an intention. Every single one. And unless you're crystal clear on, okay, this is really what I want. This is my game plan to get it. This is how I see it turning out. This, I understand my manager's position. This is kind of the middle line I can come. And I don't think any good manager on the planet will ever have a problem with you going in, having all of that data, all that backup, long-term plan, mile markers along the way to know if you're hitting your targets. And, you know, even to the point, KP, you know what? I'll give you an update every 60 days. There's not going to be very many people that are going to say anything to you. They're going to leave you in your own world as long as you start producing results, right?
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I get to it. I'll let you know how it goes, Dan. I'll let you know when pitch goes.
Here's the thing is a lot of that fear, that unknown that is in a lot of salespeople. If you're a salesperson right now and you're going through this, the fear and the unknown is because you don't have a plan that's going to get you there. That's really what it comes down to. You know, you don't just jump in your car and say, I'm going on vacation, or throw a bag on your back and say, I'm going on vacation, and leave your house. You have a plan. You have an itinerary to the point where you know exactly when the plane's leaving, exactly when you're landing, exactly what time you have to be at the airport, exactly what you have to do when you get off. You have to go through customs and you have to go to this bus 14 and you got to get on the bus 14. And then 2 hours later, you're at the resort, and then you got to go check in the resort. Then you got to go, you know, like, you know, everything you're doing. A lot of people say, well, that's common sense. Well, it is, but it's not always common practice. So why is it when we go into one of the most important meetings of our life, we haven't even planned as much as we do to plan a vacation?
Do you think that's a consequence of
vacation because of that meeting?
Do you think that's a consequence of the generation that we're in though? Like, I know my generation, and probably even more so KP's generation, it's more of that, and I call it instant oatmeal generation, when they want instant gratification. There's no time for planning. I need a taxi. No, back in the day, you'd plan to have a taxi. Now I have it instantly. I have a taxi. You know, back in the day, you'd plan out your food. Now I'm going to call Uber Eats. I have my food. You know, back in the day, you plan how to get to work, because you might have to take a bus. This now, Uber, a car, whatever, I can get to work. Do you think it's a consequence of how society has changed, where they've gone away from planning?
And when think of it like this, it's just become easier to eliminate certain things that you would have to plan. Okay, so I'll put it to you like this: some of the most successful people in the world don't pick out their clothes, because to them it's a useless consideration. I have no time for it. Just put them on my bed. When I get out of the shower, I put them on and I go away. You know, my generation of salespeople never plan. The people who plan are the ones that take this career seriously, right? Like, you'll always see them. You go to any big office and you'll always see them. You'll see the guys that are producing, and they usually take the guys that are really producing and put them in one end of the building, right? And then the ones that aren't producing, they're in another end. And there's salespeople that just have this glass ceiling, and they're like, I can't get above 20 grand a month. Like, you know, but I do 20 grand a month. Okay, you know what? It's given me, you know, a usual 70-40 split. It's giving me 6 grand a month. I'm making 72 grand a year. I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'm 72 grand a year. I'm a 25-year-old guy. I'm awesome, right? Where that changes, Matt, and where that really, the shift really happens, is when we ourselves make the decision that in everything we do, we are going to continually break it and make it better, break it and make it better, break it and make it better. That's when that mentality really kicks in. From my generation to the next generation to the instant gratification generation, the people that are really going to get on in sales don't necessarily want that. They would like it, but that instant gratification doesn't drag them down, right? And this is the big thing when it comes to that gratification, right? The biggest killer of sales is lack of forward momentum, right? But what if every sales call was educational? That's forward momentum. And that's my belief in sales. And I sign off on most of my videos, all my training programs. Go out there, make every call educational, and crush your sales. That's how I end most stuff. Because I believe if every call we either move our customer, our prospect through our sales sequence, or we learn. As simple as this. Hey Dan, I'm totally cool with my present supplier. I have no need for a new supplier. Really, Matt? You know what? I got to ask a question, because I am an avid learner. What makes them so good that you don't even want to have an exploratory call with me to see if I can tweak something, make something better, help you out on a back end that maybe they haven't thought of? See, I've turned that rejection into education, because 99% of the time they would say, oh, well, they do this. I'm like, oh, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, how does that exactly work? And I'm taking detailed notes, because if I can glean from that one conversation, one gold nugget that helps me perform better down the line with my customers, that's gold. Everyone can teach anyone else 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amazing gold nuggets. Like, you're only one applied idea away from your greatness. And that's the reality. So if I'm on a call and it's a no, and I mean, literally, I've asked the question, I've said, I've got no time for it, and they hang up. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I didn't get, but that's the kind of 1%, 99% of the time, they come back and they say, well, hey, I've just been with them for 10 years. Really? Okay. So like, what makes them so good that you've been with them for 10 years? Like, I'm really curious here. And the genuine curiosity, like the genuine conversation, comes from really wanting to know that information.
Yeah.
And that's the and I think that's the perspective when we use the word pitch or script is, no, it's you develop it for you to have that passion, right? So you're able to continue a conversation, and probably 40% of the time when that's happened, during the conversation, they realize, oh shit, hold on, they don't do that. Or no. And there's a conversation to be had about that other end, because again, 360-degree perspective, right? So to me, it's educate or move forward in the sales cycle. Those are the only two things on the cold call. Well, there is, sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's not accurate. There's rejection, because some people just say, I don't have time for it, and they hang up, right? People that say, I don't have time for it, I'm like, Mr. Prospect, I fully get it. I mean, I called you. You weren't sitting around waiting for Dan to call. And always, I mean, my suggestion to any sales rep is you 8-mile the hell out of everything you do. You put it all out there. You share with them all of the challenges, all the frustration, everything. You know what? You probably had 9 other people called today that just sucked at sales and didn't understand your business, didn't understand really what you need, and tried to suck your time because, hey, if I make a sales call, I look like I'm busy. You know what, Mr. Prospect? That's not me. That's not where I'm at. I'm really, truly genuine. My number one thing in my client profile is you're a resource. So what's your primary and secondary reason for adding or switching a service provider? You see how I just let in there? I let in with my why. I'm filtering him, because in sales, at the top of our funnel, right? And whether that's 20 calls a day, 30 calls a day, 50 calls a day, for those of you that say you do 150 calls a day, you're liars. So, top of funnel, right?
75.
And then, that top of funnel. Right below that is your filter.
Yeah.
Better that filter with your client profile, your qualifying and clarifying questions, your expert story positioning, all of that filters through. And I would much rather, when I was a team lead and I had 27 salespeople in there, I would much rather see 100 go in the top and 5 come out the bottom, really filtered. Because out of those 5, you're going to close 4. Okay. Out of the, you see that? I had 3. So out of those 4, if you don't filter properly, and out of the 100, you have 20 come through, you're going to close 2, but you're using 18% more time with the tire kickers to refilter until you come to a point where, like, okay, this dude's never going to buy. I've wasted 3 hours of my life on calls with them. They're just not going to do it. You call them up and you say, listen, enough's enough. You're going to buy, you're not going to buy. And they say, no, I'm happy with my incumbent. Thanks though. Right. I could have got rid of that dude 3 months ago at the top of my funnel.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that? And the beautiful thing about a filter is, if you look at all of, like even just take a Brita filter, for example, you put crap water in and great stuff pours out the bottom. But some people are like, it just takes too long. The filter takes too long. It's a pain in my ass. Okay. Welcome to the world of long-term sales. Because those who filter through the bottom and come out crystal clear are glacier water, best on the planet. Make sense?
Awesome. That's an awesome way of describing it, actually. I'm going to use that glacier water.
Glacier water, man. The purest of pure ideal client profiles. And don't get me wrong, guys. I had customers that started out as not my ideal client profile. And they started out because I had conversations like, okay, well, what do you mean by price? Well, Dan, my business is very competitive. And I'll share a story about this in a second. My business is very competitive. And I said, okay, so let me ask you this. If I show you I can be competitive and I show you value, does price really remain a big issue? Meaning if I'm $25, $30, $50 higher, are you going to go somewhere else? And he says, no. So what if I'm $75 higher? He says, I have to look. Okay. Now, again, I have my parameters. I'm very clear as to my area I need to be in. So if I get this load 5 times and then the 6th time I don't get it, what do I know? I know somebody's beat me by over $50 or $75. I can make that assumption because I understand the parameters. Now what I do is I understand if I'm making $200 on this load, and I can say to, and this is another thing, you can say to your manager at that point, okay, we're making 200 on this load. His variance is $75. So if we lose this lane, the rates come down by $75. In order for us to get it back, we have to drop our rate 150. That gives you a very clear position as when you lose the freight, why bother? Because you're going to make $50. And then at that point, you're part of the problem of numbers dropping. You're not part of the solution of overall prosperity in the industry, but you have your positioning. So if the conversation ever comes up, where's this business? Where's this business? Oh, I'm glad you asked. This business, we had a $200 margin. The variance was $75. We lost the freight. In order for us to get it back, we'd have to drop 150. Do it. Okay. You have a clear idea. And when you have that clear idea, that clear marching path, that map before you get into the woods, everything becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Because at this point, you lose this lane, that lane's gone. All right, move on to another one. Hey, Mr. Customer, I noticed I lost that lane. Somebody must have beat me. I don't have it in it to do that. If they ever can't do it, I'll do it for my rate. But is there any other lanes you're doing? Because I hope you saw the value in what we provided. Mm-hmm. You see, that makes sense?
Makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a hybrid perfect customer, which can be more of a bridge builder as opposed to a gap filler. Because filling the gap, just like when you look at potholes, they fill it, that sinks. You fill it, it sinks. You fill it, it sinks. If you build a bridge over it, it stays forever. Right? So what we're looking at doing is we're saying, okay, our long-term customers are the bridge from where I am to where I want to be. But you need people to build that bridge. So those hybrids become the bridge builders.
You're going to ask something, KP. What was I going to ask? Nothing along the lines of that. I guess we're just moving on to, I guess, like another topic in terms of, I guess, you could say like the transportation industry or logistic industry kind of lags in the online kind of social media promoting and marketing sort of aspect. I know over the last couple of years it's definitely picked up, but as a whole we still lag compared to a lot of the other industries, right? So how can we best position ourselves as salespeople? I know LinkedIn is a huge major resource, but I guess touching on LinkedIn or maybe any other resources to position ourselves to maybe share our services or promote ourselves on an online presence standpoint.
TikTok videos.
So yeah, 2021, I believe, I'm predicting, is going to be the year of the consultant marketer. Your marketing in 2021 is going to do 95% of the sales. The people who are going to win in 2021. So I said it at the beginning of 2020. The people who are ahead at the end of 2020 are going to be catapulted in 2021. When COVID hit, everyone I spoke to, I said, get ahead, get strategies, start hammering down. This isn't a vacation. Don't take vacation. Start hammering down on strategies. Hey, we're here to help you and we've got all your capacity needs and we got all this that you see posting on LinkedIn, that's garbage. You're never going to get anywhere with that. Where you're going to get somewhere is relevant information, honest integrity, and really caring about that information. So you read an article on ocean shipping or something, you share that article and share your own thoughts on that article. And so you're exposing yourself to people to say, like, are you crazy? How could you think that? But that gets seen by people. So if some, like for a second, don't think that any meeting or Zoom call you go to, they haven't Googled you, that they don't know who you are. Before anyone in today's day and age uses any of their time, they're going to want to know who they're going to speak to. Yep. So if they go to your LinkedIn profile and they see your post, they see that you've read articles and you have an opinion, right? The freight salesperson, if you're just a freight salesperson, you're dead in the water, because nobody wants a freight salesperson. They want somebody who can think on their feet, who can think outside the box, who can limit their exposure, who can really reduce their market exposure, not only limit their exposure, limit friction in their office with their people, with their personnel, with their operations, with everything. Like, we are literally that person in logistics. And that comes from having your own opinions, believing in specific things, relating those things back to what you do in your posts. But more than that, it's, your customers marketing for you, and marketing in this day and age is reference letters are still marketing, because customers will believe customers way before they believe you.
That's interesting.
Right? No matter what, you got to remember, like, if somebody says, hey, I just saw this movie, it is friggin' awesome, and you've never heard them before, you'd be like, oh, cool. If somebody you know and trust says, oh, dude, you got to see this movie, like, it is incredible, you're like, okay, I'm going to go see it, right? So everything we do, if we're using products, we were talking about technical products afterwards. If you go and you find the CamLink thing, you're going to be more likely to spend the $180 on it, knowing that I use it and it's awesome, because I've told you I use it all the time. It is the best thing that you can do. Yeah. So reference, that referral, the more you get, and here's the caveat to that. It's not just a referral, it's a strategic referral. So what I used to do is I used to call a customer up and say, what do I do right? What do I do wrong? What can I improve on? Whatever he said I did right, whatever, if he said I did some stuff wrong, I fixed it before I asked him the next question, right? So all of these have to be, yeah, you do X, Y, Z, awesome. No, man, we're all good. And you know what? Little bit of thing here, but nothing major. Whatever you do right, that's the reference letter. So some customers might say, you know what? Your response and your ability to stay ahead of the change curves in the industry are absolutely awesome. So that reference letter, you start building up an arsenal of reference letters. And when you're having conversations with people, and the next guy you have a guy or lady you have a conversation with that says, oh, you know what? It's like I can't get ahead of the market. One day my ocean shipping's great, and then it's container getting, and then now I got rate, but it's a rate plus a rollover rate, which is $3,000, and my ocean rate's $5,000, and now I'm paying $8,000, and it's just crazy. Oh, really? So in your communication, you slide that reference letter in. He reads it, XYZ company, major corporation, says, hey, KP's the man. He stays ahead of the market. You don't tell him that. You don't you know, hey, I'm the guy, I stay ahead of the market. You say, well, one of my beliefs is we have to stay ahead of the market, and you slide that reference letter. Now what happens, that customer that gave you that reference letter has just sold you to the 10th degree. It would have taken you 6 months to sell your prospect to that level that he sold from a simple document.
So does that reference letter look like, you know, a recommendation on LinkedIn, or is that an actual physical email that you kind of showed?
So both. You know, I've done it before where I've had a reference on LinkedIn, and I take a snapshot of it, and I put it in the email.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We were talking about that. Funny. Here's a remark from a customer of mine a couple of weeks ago. I just thought you might, you know, it might help.
But do you get permission from that customer first?
Reference letter PDF, right?
So do you get an actual, like, do you get permission from the customer first before you post it on social media?
No, I don't. So I don't post. You won't see me post these things on social media. You'll see them posted on like landing pages, but my business is a little different, right? But what I would do is I would take a snag shot of the testimonial of the person saying, hey, you know, this was awesome. This was awesome. I'm so happy for this. And I stick it in like the body of my email, right? I don't go, and again, you see, this goes back to the marketing, right? I don't typically go and repost, hey, this customer said this because I'm great. I won't, I don't do that. I've never done that. I mean, you know, people say, hey, Dan, you did a great job here. And I'm like, wow, thank you so much, because it means a lot to me. I have reference letters, like every person on any social platform that has said, hey, Dan did awesome here, or this is great, this is great, this is what he did. I keep it as a JPEG, like I take a snag of it, or you know, like a screencast of it, and I have it as a JPEG. So I'll use it in different promotional settings on a what I call P2P, on a person-to-person basis, not as a global scope. The only time I do that is when I go to the people and I say, hey, listen, can I get a testimonial from you, and can I use it on my website with your picture, right? You know, from marketing, a little thing I'm testing right now that I haven't quite got, so I'll let you all know when I do, is every company I'm going after, I'm actually creating an ad for that company and spending about $10 to $15 in a week to position that ad in front of the key people. And then I call them. And what I've found is so far, and I haven't tested to the degree I want to test it before I bring it to market, but awesome results. Because I'm like, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, yeah.
Subliminal message.
That's kind of like I don't know if I got it from Gary Vee, because I know that's one of his things. It says, when you create a Facebook ad or Instagram, don't have a generic, you know, where your dental cleaning service, really hone in of like, hey, Toronto, I'm a dentist from your area type of thing, right? So it's kind of, I was actually thinking about that, is like creating ads that says like, hey, I'm a logistics consultant in the Brampton area, blah, blah, blah. Like really hone in on the thing. So it feels personalized to the actual person who's looking at that footage, or whatever the case may be, right?
I'm even talking deeper,
Yeah.
KP. So I'm going after XYZ company. I'm running an ad to 10 people at XYZ company.
Okay.
And I'm going to call one of those 10.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. You know, I mean, you know, Gary Vee has that should be done on any larger scale ad. You know, so for you, if you were looking at, say, Tennessee, Memphis, you run it to logistics managers in Memphis, Tennessee, on, call it LinkedIn, and you spend $10 a day, you spend $50 for the week, and the next week you start calling them all.
Yeah.
Or midweek you start calling them all, right? And so it's kind of two things. You're either going to connect with them after they've seen your ad, or you're going to connect with them, then they're going to see your ad. Yeah. So either way, it's kind of that double tap of, hey, this is who I am. And you know, here's the thing when it comes to that is, if you can catch them, if you can hook them, the person in the timeline, right? I just call it hook. Anytime you stop on a video or something, it's a hook, that something visually caught you, or a word that's in the headline or whatever caught you. And they read it, and it's value driven to them. You know, perfect example. Let's take Memphis, for example. You know, massive delays and congestion in the port of LA. The largest shipping lane from California to another place in the US is California, Memphis. Like 70% of that volume goes into Memphis because it's where the most of the warehouses and all the distribution centers are.
Mhm.
So if you had a customer that in the Memphis area, right, and you target them right now because you have a carrier in the Memphis area, because again, you work with your top 10 A1 tier suppliers, and you work to build business, and you have 6 trucks a week, you run an ad saying, hey, 42% more volume in LA, it's creating a huge congestion in Memphis. I see that by rail, it's got to suck up capacity. Just so you know, I've got one company I've dealt with for the last decade, and that's all they do is run Memphis to Canada. If that's something that interests you, or if I can help out in any way to ease that friction of a capacity crunch, I'd love to help you. And that's your ad, right? That's your ad. And you're not, call me today because you know what, you're going to get 20% off, and you're not the car salesman, but you're like, hey,
doors, get some doors.
Kind of just putting yourself out there into their world of scope to give yourself visibility, essentially.
Yeah. And then now you have visibility, they see visibility, you target, because you're not going to be able to get through every company in Memphis in a week. And we got to remember, people's, we're very short attention spans these days, right? Because of app amnesia and browser blackout and stuff. So, short attention span. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to target XYZ company. I'm going to call on Wednesday, right? So Wednesday morning, you literally shut the ad off. You've spent, listen, even if you have an ad budget per salesperson of $300 a month, the ROI could be huge on the end. And again, for everyone listening, watching this, I haven't tested it. I've tested it in small doses. It's my number one test in the new year that I'm running. And
you're gonna get a lot of hate mail. I know that. I tried this. I spent $1,000. I got nothing out of it.
That's why I'm saying, for all of you out there, it's not tested yet, but it's kind of like, so I don't know if you guys saw, May, I put out a free course on LinkedIn video messaging because I was getting 66% close rates by video messaging. And when I say that, meaning, hey, I'd like to do this and this, do you think we can get that done? 62% of the people I sent a video to came back and said, hey man, you know what? Wow, video, thank you so much. Now it's dropped to like 7%.
I said that.
What's that?
I said that when you sent me that video message. I'm like, this is wicked. I love this. Thanks for the video message.
How you and I actually connected.
Yeah.
So, and it was like, hey, if I can do anything, if I can help, you know what? Hey, by all means, let me know. And you reached out. You were one of the 66%. But now, like, everybody's doing video messaging. So, there's things that come in and they really perform. And then unless you do them to really high standards, they don't perform anymore. But it's testing. It's kind of going through that.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'll let Matt talk.
You let Matt? Yes. I've been holding up. So Dan, Eli, I like your energy. I always love talking to you because you have such great energy, and you're like, it empowers me, right? What would you recommend for someone like AP, someone like myself, someone who's been doing it for, like Steve Porter, doing it forever? What would you recommend them, or how do you rate your script? What's the best script for for any of those guys? Like, how do you qualify a good script?
It's a great question. So it's got to be you. So it's got to be like Porterized. It's got to be Matterized. It's got to be KPized. You go, for lack of a better word, you go for the jugular. And I say that meaning, don't waste anyone's time. What is your number one reason you want a customer? What is the number one thing you feel you can bring? When you identify that right away, simple as it, my other question might have been, if I didn't choose the, what's your primary and secondary reason, is, hey, do you believe that your logistics supplier is a resource to your company? Yes or no? No. Okay, have a great day. That's a good call, because you just got a tire kicker out of your funnel, right? Yeah. It's being open. When you look at guys that have been in the industry as long as Steve and I, some of us are closed to trying new things. because we're so set in our ways, you know. And a lot of the times it's you try it. Like you try something 2 or 3 times, it's never going to work. So for all of you out there that right now that are saying, I need to create a script and I need to do this and this, you're going to try it. You're going to tweak it. You're going to realize I sound like an idiot when I say that. And the best way to do it is just pick up your phone, hit the voice memo, and just start pitching yourself, and then listen back. And if you hear a lot of or it doesn't sound like you, because this is the thing, authenticity rules, right? I could jump on here and pretend to be this person. And then if anyone listening has a conversation with me on a, chill level, they're going to realize, well, it's 2 totally different people. And it doesn't match up. So if you go into a prospect with this whole Tasmanian devil, and then they realize you're just chill, you're not it doesn't match, right? So long term, what are you looking for? Lay it on the table. 8 Mile it. The 8 Mile theory has been like for a decade. Here's the deal. This is what I see. These are my beliefs. I mean, even to the point where I remember telling a prospect, "Oh, these are my beliefs," and he's like, "Holy crap, you're deep." It's trucking. And I go, "Yeah, but everything you see is touched a truck. This is the greatest industry on the planet." He goes, "Dude, I'm in it for cash." That was it. And I walked out of his office, and he was a huge salesperson. And I walked out of his office and I'm like, heck, I thought all people that were really successful were as passionate as me. And it's true. A lot of people are just in it for cash. He was very smart operationally. He knew how to run his operations like a well-oiled machine, so he made money. But he had zero passion for zero. He studied to be a lawyer and zero passion for the industry. Yeah. But he realized he can make more money than he could being a lawyer. I was like, okay. But to each his own. So what is that passion for you? Like, what is that drive? What gets you up in the morning? And you go like hardcore straight into that. And those that can take you are your ideal clients. Hey, you know what? Matt, you were awesome. I really, really appreciate what you said about my energy. There's people that can't stand me. People that can't stand me because of my energy. They're like, really? Oh, guy's fake. He just, he's a whirlwind. All the time, for sure. But if I listened to any of that, where would I be? So there's going to be prospects out there that don't see eye to eye. Beautiful. Awesome. I'm no longer wasting your time. When I started really looking at qualifying, I even went from 4 or 5 minutes to qualify. And then I realized, okay, if I do 4 or 5 minutes to qualify and I speak to 10 people a day, that's 40 minutes. If I cut that in half, that's an extra 2 weeks of productivity at the end of the year. So how can I qualify a customer in 2 minutes? So then I started really grinding out the strategies and ideas and frameworks to qualify in 2 minutes, right? Now I'm like, okay, I just increased my productivity by 100%, 10-fold, 10 times. So
actually, I'll let, if you have a question. No, I was gonna say, one thing I find with a lot of sales guys, I told you, we're building a new sales team. Everybody's always building a new sales team. One thing I find with everybody, myself included, I'm no exception. You've probably had these moments too. The cold call. Mm-hmm. The cold call is something one of our guys here, I'm not going to mention him. He knows who he is. I hope he listens to this one day. He goes, "I am the best closer in the world." My argument to him is, but you can't open the conversation. You might be the best at closing it, but if you can't have that conversation to start, all you're doing is feeding off of everybody else's hard work, right? So how do I get past that? I guess the fear of rejection or a fear of putting yourself out there, that cold call. And I know you talked about scripting and all that, but.
Well, it actually comes right back to that, and it creates a confidence competence loop. See, the way I see cold calls is it's a fear of rejection, but if you know exactly what you have to say, meaning it's so entrenched in your mind that it's second nature. You pick up the phone and you say, I'm either going to learn or I'm going to move forward. It's just shifting that perspective. You know exactly what you're going to say. You know, how many times have you picked up the phone and, yeah, what can I do for you? And it's like, oh, and all of a sudden you're thrown off your game. What can I do for you? Well, let's start with what would be your primary and secondary reason for adding or switching a service provider. You know, I'm very big on believing that the number one thing I want in a prospect, Mr. Prospect, in a customer, Mr. Prospect, is that they believe I'm a resource. Do you believe your logistics provider is a resource? No matter how the person answers the phone, I'm not thrown off because I know exactly what I'm going to say. To the T. I've rehearsed it. I've brushed my teeth and said it in my head. When I spit out it, I say it again. I say it again. Like my challenge for at the beginning of this, we talked about the 28-day high performance sales challenge. I've got every week I do Q&A with the people that are in the course. And the challenge today was for the next 14 days for half an hour, practice your pitch, practice your intro, practice who you are. Like when I first started making videos, I was like, hi, this is Dan Deigan. I said, no, it's too high. Hi, this is Dan Deigan. I'm like, oh, that's fake, you know, and you get used to it and find it to, hey, it's Dan Deigan here, author of the 4 Pillars of Transportation and, you know, creator of HPLS. That it's now normal and it sounds normal when I say it. Where we get tied up and tongue-tied is we have this, and this is how I see it. And you guys, you might agree with me, you might not. I have this vision of how the call is going to go. Yeah. And at the beginning of the call, when they pick up the phone, I'm really busy. What can I do for you? It's like, oh, this isn't the vision. This isn't, you know, we turtle and we go into the fetal position and we hide under our desk.
Where's
right?
Mom?
But yeah, you know what, Mr. Prospect, you're right. I called you out of the blue. You probably weren't sitting around saying, hey, when's Dan going to call? Right? If I don't get a chuckle or anything, I say, listen, very quickly, this is what I believe in. This is my ideal client profile. Does it match? If it does, I'll leave you go, but let's figure out a time to talk because I think we can do some good things together. Yeah. When we have that confidence, because we know what we're going to say, it creates competence in how we say it, and it swings right back around. And you gain more confidence, you gain more competence, and it's this infinity loop of confidence, competence loop. And it all starts with, how are you going to ask the first question? What are you going to say? What does that mean to you? Does it address the number one thing of your client profile? And when we do that and we keep going, it's like, you know, I remember when I went to my first kind of golf school, I was shooting 94, 95. I came back shooting 115 from golf school. And I was like, and the owner of the company I was at, he took me to Golf Digest School in Sun Valley, Idaho. And I got to train with Tim Mahoney, which was right below Butch at that day and age. And Butch was Tiger Woods' coach in those days. And you know, I'm leaving for this golf school and I'm like, oh, you boys, I'm going to take all your cash when I get back. And they took all mine for 3 months. But I stuck with it. 2 years later, I was shooting 71. 2 years. And we have winters up here. So that's what I'm talking about, is that everything seems like, even right now, if you guys wear a watch, put your watch on the other wrist. It seems so weird. And you're like, oh my God, it's almost like I don't even my hand. But in a day, it's normal. You're going to start doing this, right? So it's that cold call that you're specifically talking about, that introduction. Once we introduce ourselves, we say, here's my mission. As soon as that person says, oh my God, I believe the same thing, it's like, oh my God, we're kindred spirits. You wear a Superman shirt, I wear a Superman shirt. I love Superman. Do you love Superman? You know, I am Batman. And you start that relationship.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, exactly. Literally. And it's, you know, yes, we're outbound, right? A lot of sales is inbound. You go into a car dealership, you're looking for a car, it's inbound. So we have that, hey, Mr. Prospect, I took you away from probably something really important. You know, like, okay, I get that. I'm not oblivious to it. Just 2 seconds. Like I literally need them. And I've always found the sweet mark was 1.5 minutes of your time. Because anytime you say to somebody, I need 5 minutes of your time, they're like, oh, fuck, you're going to take 15. But if we say 1.5 minutes, it's like, okay, you know, and then I'm looking at my clock and I'm going, okay, I know in literally 30 seconds, okay, we're 1 minute in here. I apologize. I just got one more question. Is that fine? Now you're reinforcing the fact that, okay, this person is honest, they have integrity because they said 1.5 minutes and they're using 1.5 minutes of my time. And most of the time the conversation continues because they have the time. They just don't have the time for 15 different salespeople to use up 20 minutes of their time. But they have 10 minutes.
It's funny you talk about that confidence piece and that kind of loop. I know when we were doing the selfie podcast for a bit, we were trying different methods out because we like you said, we're trying different things would stick. I would record honestly like 15 or 20 different ones until I felt it was right. I'd be like, hey, welcome, like late night talk show, Matt, here we go. And I'm like, no, it doesn't sound right. Hey, this is bad. Oh, that's too. And I'd like practice and I'd be sitting there and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, my podcast.
Who are you talking to, Matt?
Yeah, who are you talking to? Who's that woman? That's me. It takes that practice until you can build that confidence. And my biggest thing was it won't be perfect, but it gets the right message across. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes what you need, right? You don't always have to be perfect in every single detail. Like, great example, going right back to our start of our conversation. Your Friday, from your perspective, the whole world was collapsing, but it was pretty damn good. And everybody else saw it as pretty damn, but in your world, you said it. You're sitting there going, oh my God, what am I going to do?
We had people, I had one person sending me an email midway through going, is this a scam? Like, there's nothing working, things aren't happening. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, I listen, you're not going to please everyone. Not every prospect you call is your ideal prospect. Okay, get over it. Like, be happy you didn't waste more time. That's that perspective shift.
Yeah.
Like, be happy you didn't spend another 5 minutes that you could be spending with somebody that goes, we are BFFs right now, like instantly, right? Like, and I know some people are like, oh, come on, Dan, but if you have that perspective, everything changes.
Yep. Everything changes. My best thing that my mentor taught me about sales, and he used to call him the mayor of Ontario. Everybody knew him. And Norm Snade, if whoever's listening, I know he doesn't listen to stuff, but someone will tell him. Norm told me a long time ago is the easiest way to do sales is you make friends with the people. Someone who's difficult, it's a lot easier to tell them the truth and be transparent with them when you're friends with them. If you see them as as a customer, but if they're your friend, you're more likely to be honest. You're more likely to figure out a solution. You're more likely to go down and help them out. You're more likely to have that confidence to have that conversation with them. The moment that it's not a friend and you don't feel like you call them up, you can't wish them a Merry Christmas, genuinely wish them a happy holidays or a happy birthday, like you're wasting his time and you're wasting your own time. And that taught me that I got to approach external, internal relationships the same way. Like if we make, and it's not like friends, but if you make a relationship with someone and they can relate to you and you can relate to them, it makes everything so much easier because you guys are on the same level. Like you said, you're BFFs. There's a sense of excitement to talk to that person. They called you up. You're like, hey, I'm excited to talk to them. I was excited to really have this conversation because it's interesting, right? I have excitement for most of them. And it just brings out the excitement and you feel it in the person. And like you talk about that being genuine, yeah. People feed off of that. They can see that. And that's why it surprised me when you said that.
Matt.
Exactly.
Passion. People buy your energy. If you're calling me up, you're like, yeah, I'd love to move your freight. And, I remember I called a company up. I used a waterless wax. I bought a black car and I could not keep it clean. I always had water spots on it. And my wife found this F1 wax she went to a gas station and some of these guys were like spraying people's car and she got it for me as a gift. And awesome stuff. Awesome. I went in on Monday. I called the company that produced it. And I said, listen, you don't understand. I got a black car and I've never had a black car before. And I got a black car and I couldn't keep the water spots up. And I used your stuff and I kept the water spots up. And my car is gleaming. And the guy stops. He goes, whoa, hold on. Whatever it is, you got my business. He goes, because if you have that much passion in my product, I know you're going to take care of me. Like, done.
And that's the key. Dan, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
We had a fantastic, I know KP is probably going to be listening to this all night on repeat, trying to figure out the key to success. I know soon enough, I'm going to be putting the guys myself on your program because myself joining it. and we'll be part of your program. Anybody who doesn't know about it, really reach out to Dan, learn about it. I think it's fantastic. I'm excited to join about it. I just gotta set up a plan for my team to kind of come on as a whole group, because we want to do it together. And Dan Deigan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a fantastic time.
Have a great night and happy holidays, guys. Take care.
You too. Take care, Dan.
Bye.